Hello, I'm Bethany from Bethany Wellness. Join me for part 2 of this Reflect and Renew yoga class. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of this Reflect and Renew series. So if you're with us for the first part, you know we like to have a lot of props because this is a very restorative and renewal type of class where we just spend a lot of time in a pose with a lot of support. So I'd like you to gather 2 pillows, perhaps just from your bed, so standard size pillows, 2 blankets, and then I have 2 yoga blocks here. If you don't have blocks, you can just grab more pillows, towels that you roll up. So those would be other items you could use, and then a journal. So we'll be reflecting by writing a few things in our journals today. So go ahead and gather those items and let's begin. So take your 2 pillows and place them at the top of your mat. And have your other items within reach so that you can grab them if you need to. So I'm going to begin by having my 2 pillows. I'm going to have a little blanket or a towel rolled up for head support. And then just come to sitting on your mat and rest your back and your hips kind of right up against the pillows. And just start to lay down onto the stack of pillows. Move that head support. And then my feet are bent, or my knees are bent, so my feet are on the mat. And just settle in here by taking a few breaths. And then our next part to access the pose is to bring the soles of the feet together as you let your legs open up to the sides. And here's where you might wish to have more support underneath the thighs. So I have my blocks here. You might wish to use pillows or, like I said, a towel. So this is our lying down butterfly pose. And you can rest hands maybe on your belly, or if it feels more comfortable, you can just have your arms resting down by your sides. Just begin to connect with breath here as we begin our Reflect and Renew practice today. If you're with us for part 1, you kind of get the concept of we're reflecting on last year. We're reflecting on 2020. We're reflecting in different categories. So in part 1, we reflected on things like our health, our physical health, our mental health, emotional health, and our spiritual health. Today, we are focused on love. So as you rest in this pose, as you begin to connect to your breath, I want you to think about, as you reflect on the year 2020, just thinking about love for yourself. What did that look like for you in that year, the year of 2020? Love for yourself. And allow your breath to saturate your mind, your body, your spirit, allowing you to feel present here in this pose, in this moment. Clearing away the busy thoughts, clearing away the busy body. Sometimes there's a tendency to want to wiggle as we're in these poses for an extended amount of time. Just resist that temptation, just be still, and then allow the thoughts to surface to your heart or to your mind on our topic of love. So it's once we clear away the busyness that sometimes we can tune in and hear and reflect. And try not to be too cerebral. I sometimes get a little too much into my head of trying to overthink things. So just allow whatever surfaces to just be there. And I encourage you to close your eyes, just to draw your attention in, to take away any of the distractions. And heart center is open right now. We have heart center kind of in the middle of your chest, just opening up. This pose is wonderful for that. Think about also drawing in love for yourself in this pose. Take a couple more breaths. And then slowly draw your knees back together so that your feet connect to the mat. You can move your props that you had maybe near you. And then slowly roll to your side. Take your time, especially as we hold these poses for a long time. It's a little bit important here to just be slow as you rise up. And then find your journal as you're in a comfortable seated pose. And as we reflect on 2020 in the category of love for self, I want you to first write what went well for that category, in the category of love for yourself. What went well in the year 2020? Maybe you had a good self-care routine going on in 2020 that nurtured yourself. That's a loving act. Maybe you decided to ditch some of the critical thoughts. So just some ideas there, but think about what went well for you. And then think about number 2, what was difficult, what was hard for you in the year of 2020 in terms of love for self? And then last question on love for self, what is your intention or your purpose for 2021? How will you approach 2021 in terms of love for yourself? Good. And if nothing's coming to mind, that's okay. You can just jot down the questions and revisit it later. So let's move on. So looking at our next pose, you'll probably want to have at least your blankets or your towels nearby. You may need a pillow, you may not. So just maybe have it within reach. So come into tabletop first. So on your hands and knees. And then slowly begin to draw your right knee up towards your right wrist for half pigeon. And here's where you can just walk your hands a little farther up and then let the left leg sink down. So we're letting that left leg sink back behind us in the center of the mat. And then from here you can choose, I'm using my palms to press into the mat. Notice the right knee. Does the right knee feel comfortable? Does it feel compressed? Is there any pain or discomfort? If so, play around with the angle of your shin. So you may wish to have a little bit more of an angle or less of an angle with the shin. You may wish to find the towel or the blanket and place it underneath the right sits bone or that right hip. And then choose here if you'd like to sink down, coming to the forearms. How does that feel? Does that feel comfortable enough that you can maintain a nice steady breath and avoid the wiggling that sometimes comes along? So just be here in this space, avoiding the wiggles, staying with breath. And then connect your forehead if that's comfortable for you. So those are the options. You can stay upright, you can come down to forearms, or you can connect the forehead all the way down. I want you to be comfortable enough, though, to maintain a steady breath and to feel like you can rest and feel restored in the pose. Yes, there's going to be some intensity to the pose as we hold it for quite a while. But as long as you're feeling supported enough to where you can rest and be with breath, that's your sweet spot. Be sure you have a nice pattern of breathing that is flowing steadily like a pattern of an ocean wave. It is allowing space to come into the hip, into the glutes, allowing the thoughts to clear, and draw your attention back to our topic of love. I want you to think of last year in 2020, love for friends and family. What did that look like for you? So love for friends and family. No doubt there was challenges last year with the pandemic, with COVID-19, challenges with connecting physically, maybe in person, connecting to friends and family. But maybe you found other ways to connect and share and show your love. for your friends and family. And yes, there was challenges too, so just allow any of those thoughts to surface. Whatever comes, just allow the pose to reveal it. By just resting in the pose, connecting with breath. And a couple more breaths. And slowly begin to rise up, press into tabletop. So draw the right knee back. From here, let's release the right hip. Since we had it compressed, just do some maybe circles with the right knee bent out to the side. Some hip circles, forward circles and backward circles. Good, then come back into table. Now other side. So left knee draws up to the left wrist. Let the right leg rest down behind you as it stretches onto the mat. Finding once again how that left knee feels. If there's compression, changing the angle of the shin. If you'd like to find some support underneath the left sits bone or the left hip. Decide if you're going to stay upright or if you're going to forward fold to the forearms. Or final option, coming all the way down to your forehead. Honoring where you're at today, exploring, meeting yourself where you're at. Connecting to your breath. Letting this side open space in your left hip, the left glutes, maybe the left thigh. Maintaining a steady breathing pattern. Allowing your breath to guide you into opening those spaces, into clearing your mind so that you can reflect on love for friends and family in the last year. And so that you can also feel restored and renewed as we approach this new year. And once again, avoid the temptation to wiggle, especially with these longer holds. By about halfway through, sometimes there's that energy that we're still sort of trying to figure out what to do with it. It will pass as you continue to connect with breath and as you continue to go towards stillness. And take any final thoughts in the category of love for friends and family. Take a few more breaths. And then slowly begin to rise up, pressing your palms into the mat, coming in to table. Remove your props and draw that left knee back. And then take a few moments circling the left leg out with the knee bent, doing your hip circles, forward circles, and backward circles. Good, and then come to sitting comfortably with your journal. And here we're reflecting on love for friends and family. First question, what went well? Write down what went well from last year, 2020. And what was difficult? What was a challenge? And then finally, what are your intentions or your purposes as you approach 2021 in the category of love for friends and family? Good, and just go ahead and set your journal down as we prepare for our next pose. For the next pose, I like to sit on a rolled blanket. This is a seated forward fold with legs stretched out. The rolled up blanket, if you sit towards the front of it, you'll notice it helps tilt the pelvis down and helps lengthen the spine a little more. Versus without that, sometimes you just kind of round and you're really forcing a posture that just is hard sometimes. So here, if I sit with the blanket right underneath my sits bones towards the front, I feel a little more lengthened through my spine. And we're holding this pose once again for quite a while. So I'm going to use pillows because this pose is challenging for me. It's not comfortable for me. So find what's comfortable for you. If you want to have your pillows, I like to place my pillows on my lap to give me something to rest my arms on. And then when you're ready, hinging from the hips, begin to fold forward. And here you can even choose, if you'd like, you can rest your head on a blanket or a pillow if it's closer up towards your face. Feel free to just rest your head down even. And stay with breath. Breath is so important with every pose. We have the opportunity to connect to our breath, to find space, to find stillness, and to let whatever surfaces, whatever our thoughts that are surfacing as we are reflecting on the category of love. In this pose, I'd like you to reflect on love for others. And when I say others, I mean the idea of loving your neighbor or a stranger, someone you don't know or someone that you don't know very well. How did that look for you last year in 2020? So love for neighbors and strangers. Did you have any acts of kindness that might have made a difference in somebody's day, even if you don't know the impact you had? Did you approach neighbors and strangers with kindness? Or were you loved by a neighbor or a stranger in a really special way that made a difference in your day? Keep breathing. Some of us in yoga have those poses where it's just a long pose, and this is the one for me. This is always just a long pose. But as I get a little more accustomed to just being and holding for a little while longer, helps me find the peace and the surrender in it. But breath is how we get there, connecting to breath. As we wrap up this pose, just take a few more nice, full breaths. Letting any last thoughts surface as we think about love for neighbors and strangers. And then slowly rise up. And then find your journal again as we jot down any thoughts that surfaced for what went well in terms of love for neighbors and strangers. What went well last year for you? Did you find compassion for people? Did you find acts of kindness? Things like that. Second part, what was hard? What was difficult in love for neighbors and strangers? And then finally, what's your intention or your purpose as you approach 2021 in terms of love for strangers and neighbors? Good. All right. Then you may wish to have some of your items nearby as we settle into our final pose. First, come to just lying down on your back and hug your knees in. So just settling in with knees gently hugged in, wrapping arms around shins or behind your legs. Take some breath. And release your arms down. Bring your feet down, so knees are still bent. Arms to a T, preparing for spinal twist. Take a breath and exhale as legs release to the left. Now, if your feet are together, that's a deeper twist. So you choose if you'd like a deeper or more gentle. More gentle would have your feet farther apart and having the legs less bent, maybe farther away from your torso. Inhale, legs to center. Exhale, slowly release your legs to the right. Good. Then bring legs back to center. Hug knees in one last time. And then release down for your final surrender, your Savasana. And since I have all these lovely props, I'm going to choose to make use of them. So you decide if you would like to join me in that, explore what's comfortable. Since I have these two giant pillows, I'm going to just let them rest underneath my knees. And then I'll place a little pillow under my head. So once again, just finding what's going to be a comfortable, restorative way to settle into Shavasana. So just feeling cozy. I'm going to get a blanket too while I'm at it. And just connect here to that comfort of feeling restored, a little bit renewed. Maybe rest your hands on your belly. Close your eyes. Begin to allow all of the things that we reflected on to just settle in here. Reflecting on the topic of love. Think about each inhale, drawing in love for yourself. And on each exhale, sending out love to others. And do that a few more times, just using that imagery of drawing in on the inhales, drawing in love. And as you exhale, sending out love. And settle into your breathing pattern that is full and steady, a slow breathing pattern. Thinking like a pattern of an ocean wave, letting the breath go from the belly up to the shoulders, and then pause for a moment before you exhale. Begin to feel the relaxation settling in to your mind, your body, your spirit with each cycle of breath. Let the muscles in your face relax, your forehead opens, eyebrows and eyelids are soft, your nostrils release, and your mouth and jaw neutral. Shoulders sink down as both arms filled with warmth, traveling down to your hands, to the tips of your fingers. Torso and your hips sink down a little more as your legs are filled with relaxation, moving down to your feet, to the tips of your toes. Feeling completely relaxed in your mind, your body, your spirit. Feeling love in this place. Feeling peace. Final surrender, Shavasana. Take a deep breath in as you bring awareness and movement back. Wiggle your fingers and toes, bend at the wrist and ankles. Take your time as you roll to your side. Maybe use your arm as a pillow. And then slowly help yourself to rise up to a comfortable seated position. And thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of this Reflect and Renew yoga. I hope you have some insights that surfaced for you today, or you can look back at your journal and maybe fill in a few gaps that might not have surfaced during the class. We'll end with Namaste. The teacher in me honors the teacher in you. Namaste. Be well.